Hello and welcome back to the EMJ GOLD podcast, brought to you by EMJ, your number one open access destination for HCPs and pharma globally. Jade, welcome back to another episode.
Thank you very much. How are you doing, Isabel?
Very good. Looking forward to sharing what is part two of last week's conversation.
Yes, exactly. Today we are bringing everyone our World Cancer Day special part 2 with Martin Price, who's the VP of Health Economics, Market Access and Reimbursement over at J&J Innovative Medicines for Europe, the Middle East and Africa.
That is right. If you haven't listened to last week's episode, we do recommend you head over there and give it a listen. Martin talks about a variety of things, including his journey into health economics, this year's World Cancer Day theme of United by Unique, and J&J's Real World Evidence Initiative honour. So plenty to enjoy. But Jade, what do we have coming up today?
Well, today's conversation focuses around Martin's thoughts on improving the access to innovative cancer medicines, how we can improve the public's trust towards industry, and how Martin's team at J&J help him to grow and learn every day on the job.
Sounds very interesting. Shall we get into it?
I think we should.
There are specific healthcare challenges across the European market as a whole. In your opinion, how do you think access can be improved when it comes to actually getting those innovative cancer therapies in the door?
Yeah, as you said, there's certainly room for improvement. And in my position, in the role I have here at J&J, and also with my background in healthcare, I find this disparity in access across Europe quite troubling. And I think we should all be uncomfortable with it. So if you look at time from when the regulators approve the medicine to when it's reimbursed, which means effectively it's available for patients, there's a huge variability. So depending on where you live, it can take an average of just 3 months to access new innovation, or in other countries, it can take up to 30 months. So this is something that we need to work together, I think, to address. And we also see differences in mortality rate as well across Europe. So it's not just access to medicines, it's differences in outcomes within Europe and within the European Union. So we have to understand more, and it's multifactorial, but we certainly believe access to treatment in many of the cancer types we're talking about is an important part of that. So fundamentally, to answer your question, we need HTA and decision-making processes to speed up across Europe. And how do we do that? Well, I think one opportunity here is the advent of EU-JCA. So this is essentially a new European health technology assessment process, which kicked off at the start of 2025. So this could make a meaningful difference, I believe, but only if there is the political will to do so. And that's an important question in my mind. Do countries really want to speed up? Because actually, if they delay access to innovation, it can help control costs. So we need a kind of honest discussion here about what we want to do. Because the theory goes that if member states replace part or a lot of their local assessments with this new Central European JCA report, then local HTA systems should be quicker. It should be more efficient, and it should lead to faster access for patients with less variation between countries. And for me, if it doesn't, you have to question, what's the point? Why are we doing this anyway? So we need that shared objective to use this opportunity to really speed things up. So things need to get faster, but we also need to look at how HTA systems evaluate new medicines as well. So we need a bit more flexibility and pragmatism, in my view, so that we can make decisions on the basis of the best available evidence as close to regulatory approval as possible. Just to give an example, one of the challenges we see is that across Europe, HTAs want to see overall survival as their core endpoint for cancer. And of course, that makes a lot of sense. But the reality is, as treatments improve, as outcomes get better, our ability to show this within a clinical trial diminishes because, hey, good news, patients are living longer. So you'd have to run, in some instances, trials for many, many years to be able to show this overall survival difference. So what do? Do we either wait for years and years and years, so patients have to sacrifice access to medicines for statistical certainty, or do we find another way? Are we prepared to be more flexible and more pragmatic? And of course, I believe we have to go in that direction. So we have to be able to make decisions on the basis of endpoints that are patient relevant, clinically meaningful, but act as an alternative to overall survival. So we're making some progress, and we've recently pioneered new endpoints that are patient relevant, such as event-free survival or metastases-free survival. So we can find a way, but we need to have a more harmonized approach here, or we risk not keeping up with the pace of scientific advances in cancer. And how do we sort of balance all of this? Well, I think one possibility is that maybe HTA needs to be more of an ongoing process. At the moment, it tends to be one decision taken at a particular point in time, and we still need that decision. But maybe we need to come back with real-world evidence, with more mature data at a later stage to validate that our early data is actually delivering the benefits that patients need. So I think that HTA system needs to be continually evolved to make sure it's fit for purpose. So HTA needs to kind of change. The other thing is, and this is maybe, a little bit more provocative in light of, some of the conversations we see out there, but I think we should ask ourselves a question about, should we be investing more in cancer? And I'll explain why. In Europe, the reality is we only spend about 6% of our healthcare budget on cancer, despite it being the second leading cause of death in Europe, and as I said earlier, will become the leading cause of death. We know that use of innovative new treatments, therapies, imaging, surgery can make a real difference, can reduce costs, can improve mental well-being and productivity. So, but we recognize it's not as simple as just spending more. We have to make smart investments. We know resources are finite. So we need to tackle waste. We need to focus on value-based healthcare that invests in putting the patient at the heart of decision making. And I believe if we reduce waste, we can create more headroom to spend more. So, I think there's a huge opportunity for us here to make a difference. And it would be great, I think, if, Europe could leverage its collective strength and become a region which is leading in the world with so much uncertainty at the moment. Europe has a great opportunity, I think, here to become a leader in improving healthcare outcomes in cancer.
You're calling for some pretty big changes there, but hopefully we can see some flexibility on both those systems as the years carry on. It would be great to see a lot more spending going towards cancer budgets. I can't believe it's just, did you say just 6% get spent on cancer?
Absolutely, yeah.
Gosh,
I know.
that's shocking.
Yeah, it's less than many other diseases as well, such as metabolic disease. So we don't spend as much as we think we do, because there's often a focus on headline costs of drugs, but actually it's pretty small.
All right, very interesting to know. Speaking of headline costs of drugs, I'd love to get your opinion on the sometimes negative narrative that surrounds access and pricing in the pharmaceutical industry. I know pharma's often seen as sort of the big bad wolf. They're making us pay for medication, things like that. But at the end of the day, it's how it has to work. But do you have any opinions on how the industry can foster greater trust with the public when it comes to this?
Yeah, it's a really important question. So here's my take on it, right? First thing to say is I'm really proud of the industry I've spent my career working in. I think we do and have done incredible work to advance human health. And it troubles me that good work isn't always recognized. And as you said, sometimes the debate is too much about sticker price of medicines and the industry being challenged about access to medicines, but we really do want to work collaboratively with healthcare systems to get our medicines reimbursed, used. The worst thing for us is that we develop medicines and they don't reach the patients for which we've researched and developed these medicines over many, many years. So I think we share that common objective. But to your point, clearly we need to do a better job of engaging the public and society in general and have an open dialogue on these topics. So I think talking about it is a really good thing. So from my perspective, a few kind of things to keep in mind. First of all, an understanding of our business model as an innovative company. It's founded on discovering, identifying transformational medicines and bringing them to patients. That's what we aim to do. And when we do that, we take huge risks. We spend billions in the development of these drugs. So the one thing we need from healthcare systems, from society, is that we are appropriately rewarded for doing so, because this enables us to continue this virtuous cycle of research and development, to continue to make strides against some of the biggest healthcare challenges that we're facing, and make sure for the patients of tomorrow that we can continue to get better. So we need that reward and recognition for developing this innovation. And it's also worth saying that we have a finite period of patent protection when we can recoup that investment, after which generic versions enter. This enables savings in the healthcare system, and that's on one hand kind of quite hard for companies to manage, but I actually also think it's a good thing, because it creates savings which create headroom for new innovation. So it's a kind of virtuous cycle. And I think, having worked in the industry for a long time, it works quite well. The other thing I would say is that the costs of medicines are often in the headlines. We get that. But again, if you look at OECD data, we know that healthcare costs are going up, but actually the proportion of healthcare spend that is allocated to medicines since around 2007 has continued to fall. So in other words, it's other parts of the healthcare system that are driving increased costs more than drug therapy. In most countries, medicines account for somewhere between, say, 10 and 15% of healthcare spend. But actually, a lot of that is on older generic medicines. So when you dig down to healthcare spend on innovative medicines, it's often sort of half of that. So it's often single digit. So you have this relatively small amount of overall healthcare spend, but it receives a huge level of scrutiny, because when we launch new medicines, in most countries, they're subject to very rigorous and highly scientific evaluation by HTA agencies, followed by very intense reimbursement and pricing negotiations with the relevant authorities. In these discussions, we look at the value of the medicine relevant to current standard of care and what they do already, the level of benefit it offers to patients. And so ultimately, we look at the value, and then the final price is agreed by both parties through negotiations at a country level. So it's a pretty exacting process, and there are lots of kind of steps that we have to go through to agree a price. So it's this high level of scrutiny, which I get, but it's actually for a relatively small proportion of the overall healthcare spend. And this is in the context of something that we also need to do better, which is to explain how innovative treatments improve health outcomes. We know, and I talked about some of the examples in cancer, but we know also that if you look at at some studies in the last 10 years or so, life expectancy increased by just over 1 year. I think it was 1.2 years. Excuse me. 73% of which was due to pharmaceutical innovation. So we know that investment in medicines is a good thing, and we need a healthy, highly skilled, well-resourced pharmaceutical industry to support R&D, and to make sure that we continue to discover and develop and deliver to patients transformational medications. So I think I understand the challenge. I understand where people are coming from, but we need a more nuanced and a more sophisticated discussion on it, I would say.
I agree with you completely there. Again, you're saying so many good points. I don't know what to pull out on, but yeah, I love what you said about patents are running out or allowing companies more room for innovation and sort of like competing with yourself to see what you can come up with. I think that's a really interesting way to look at it. And yeah, I agree with you completely as well on that wider transparency around R&D. I think it would be great to really see how the money is invested and making that a lot more public, just for the general public to see how the money is getting reimbursed into the wider innovation cycle and really making those medicines that are clearly making such a difference in the cancer space and beyond.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for sticking with me so far. I want to take your mind back to my very first question around when you first started out in the industry, and I would love to know how you think your leadership style has changed over time and what qualities you think are important for leaders to be successful working in the industry.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most important thing for me is that you have a mindset where you continually grow and learn every day. You know, there's an old saying, every day is a school day, but I think in an organization like this, it's absolutely true. And you do learn, and you have to continually kind of grow professionally and as a leader. So I think it's important that you continue to evolve, both as yourself, but also you continue to evolve and adapt your organization as you look towards the future. What capabilities are you going to need? What kinds of skills do you need to be successful today, but also into the future? So evolution and learning, I think, is important. The other thing I would say is you need to really think strategically in everything that you do as a leader. You need to learn when to zoom into the detail and when to stay higher level. You also need to think about today, but have a close eye on the future and the longer term. And getting that balance right, I think, is really important. And never more so than today. The world has become so complex. It's so fast moving. We're seeing themes like artificial intelligence. There's issues with austerity. There's geopolitical uncertainty. So there's so much going on within our industry and outside our industry that I'm convinced the key to success is that you navigate this with a great team around you. A team who have diverse experiences and perspectives, and a team who work together in an environment of trust and open collaboration. So for me, that's incredibly important. I always try and listen. I'm not afraid to make decisions, but equally, I'm not afraid to amend my perspective, change my view by listening to different people, getting a range of inputs, and being guided. And I think with all of the complex decisions that we have to make, I can only do this with the active support of the team I have around me. And I think it's really important as well that you, particularly in market access, you remain resilient and you remain optimistic. I think how you deal with challenge and adversity says a lot about you as a person and a leader. So you need to have the ability to roll your sleeves up, not panic, get in and support the team when you come up against those challenges. And then I would also say humility is important. Leave your ego at the door. Do not make assumptions and be prepared to learn from the smart people around you. So you don't have all of the answers and you don't have to, but if you have a great team around you, the answers are somewhere there. And then finally, I would say a really important element of leadership is help others grow and develop their careers. Give people the space to develop and support them through that journey. Share your experience and knowledge openly. And for me, what I would love to do is essentially to leave a legacy, to make a difference and leave a legacy.
That's a very noble goal, and I think it sounds like something you're definitely set to do, guided by such a wonderful team, it sounds.
They're a great team. Very lovely.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Martin. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you very much. It was great chatting with you too.
Well, what a lovely note to end on there. I really enjoyed those insights. I think, as Martin said, great leadership at the end of the day does come back to great teamwork. So it's great to hear how Martin does encourage his team in that way and, works to really develop their professional journeys. Was there a key insight for you, Jade, you'd like to pick up?
Oh, definitely. Personally, I was really shocked by the information he shared about how much Europe actually invests in cancer. He shared only 6% of its health budget, which is quite, stark.
Yeah.
If it is going to be, as he says, the leading cause of death in Europe in the future, I do think it's time to, take another look at our investments and really focus on that value-based healthcare that Martin suggests.
Absolutely. Really interesting stat. It is quite a small proportion, isn't it?
I was expecting much more.
Absolutely. I think most people would. So that was fascinating. And hopefully we do see some changes when it comes to prioritising budgets as the year and future years come on. But I think that does bring us to the end of that episode, the end of our 2-part World Cancer Day special. Thank you so much again to Martin for joining us, and thank you to you at home for tuning in.
Do be sure to come back next week for another great episode. But until then, it's bye from us.
Bye.